Hey everyone, welcome back to the Awesome Life Podcast. I'm Karen Stultz, your host, and here we like to give tips and resources and inspiration to you out there listening, because living an awesome life is your birthright. And my guests and I want to give you those advantages, those hopes, those dreams, and help make them realities. And my guest today is a little bit different than many of my guests that I've had before. Jared, the medium. I love Jared. We had a conversation before, and he's the real deal. He's the real deal. And as we were talking just before we came on the air, it was additionally, yes, we don't know where this is going to go. We're going to let the universe guide us, and which, of course, in awesome, spirit is right in the middle. The S in the middle of awesome stands for spirit. So we're going to see where this conversation goes. And as always, the final E in awesome is for enjoyment and fun. So stick around and we'll have a lot of fun. So welcome, Jared. Jared has been actually doing mediumship professionally for the last decade or so. But I have to ask you, Jared, how did you discover that you were a medium?
Yeah. So first thing I want to say is I'm more than just a little different than your, I love your intro. He's a little different. Yeah, I'm a lot different. No, I loved that intro though. That was really, really good. So the truth is that I've always been able to do this. My dad died when I was 2 years old. And so growing up, I just always felt my dad's presence around me. I always knew he was around me. He would help me. He would give me, dream. I had reoccurring dreams with him in it all the time. And I would get chills all the time when he was trying to warn me or when he was trying to help me. So I think that I had a little bit of a head start than other people because of that, because I had that person right there on the other side since I was young, helping me out. But I don't think that I'm any different than you. I think this is not some magic special gift that I was given that nobody else has. I think everybody can do what I do. And I work with people to teach them that, because I think we unlearn this ability. That's the truth. I think we're born with it. I think we come out of the womb and that's all we have. I mean, when you think about a baby cannot communicate by talking, can't communicate by any form other than empath ability. They can tell you, they can kind of give you their senses. They feel what mom feels. They feel what dad feels. That's all you have when you're born. And so I think we are born with this, and I think we unlearn it. I think we go through life and people tell us it's not real, and we justify it, and we think it away. That's the best way I could say. We think it away, or we're taught it away. And so that's what I think happens. And so a lot of people are coming back around to this when they get a little older in life and they start to, get a little stronger. And so I am seeing a big increase of people coming back to it. And so to answer your question, how did I become a medium? I was always a medium. I think we're all medium. Just means middleman. It just means that I take what I get from spirit and I pass it on to people. And I think we all do that. We all do that, and we do it for ourselves. We get messages from spirit, right? That's all that means. And so my job is to simplify this, make it as simple as possible, so like the normal construction worker guy can understand it, right? Because that's what I am. I'm the normal construction guy.
Well, say that one more time. What is your definition of medium? Because that is really important.
So this is what I say before every reading. I say medium just means middleman. So I'm trying to take what I get from spirit and pass it on to you without mixing it with my own thoughts, my own ideas, or letting my own ego get in the way.
I love it. I love it.
And that's the formula, right? That's the formula. So because the biggest hurdle we have when we get messages from spirit is that we mix it with our own wants, our own fears. Like when I say ego, I mean, a lot of people think egotistical, right? But what I mean when I say ego is usually fear. Fear is how my ego gets me. Ego tells me I'm not good enough. Ego tells me I don't deserve this. Ego tells me I can't do this. This isn't right. I'm wrong. Everybody hates me. Like that's how my ego usually defeats me, right? Like that's how it gets me. And so when I get a message for myself from spirit, I'm going to mix all those fears in with what I get before I give it to myself. So it's really, really hard to give yourself messages without mixing it with your own fears and your own wants. And I describe it like this for my family too. Like I'm a professional medium and I can't give my own wife messages. Like she gets frustrated with me sometimes because she's like, how come everybody else gets this and like you can't? And there's a reason for that. And this is a great example. And so I got a message from my wife that said she's unhappy at work. She's miserable. We got to get her out of there. Okay, very clear message. I got it. It's clear. I go to give her that message. And what came out of my mouth was, honey, when we're more financially stable, we really need to get you out of that job. So without trying, I mixed it with my own fears, my own wants, my own concerns. So see how that works, right? So that's where my ego comes in. So again, you want to know how I became a medium? The truth is I practice it with strangers. I practice it with people I know nothing about because there's no way I can mix my own thoughts, my own ideas, and my own ego with it if I don't know anything about them. So when I read somebody, I tell them, don't tell me anything. I don't want to know anything but yes or no answers because it just gets in the way. So that's how I became a medium. I practiced. I have a father who passed when I was 2 years old, who always gave me messages. And I just kind of stayed with it, no matter how much people told me it wasn't real, or how much people told me, that's the boogeyman or that's scary or all that stuff. I just always knew it was real. It was my dad. Like, how do you argue with that?
And you
Right?
felt safe with your dad.
Exactly. And you hear it, everybody said, like even the most religious person uses this same thing. It's no different, right? It's no different. Like they're communicating with spirit. They're talking about their loved ones being around all the time. They're talking about, oh, that's my mom helping me, or it's not, it's not a bad thing. And I for a long time thought it was. So there's another part of the story that's very interesting. For a long time, when I would get feelings, I'd get warnings. I would say that I would say I got a bad feeling. And my friends all knew, like all my friends knew, like when Jared got a bad feeling, you listened. So like there, and I would say, I got a bad feeling, something's wrong. And it took me a long time to realize that I wasn't getting a bad feeling. I was getting a feeling something bad was going to happen. Okay. This feeling was getting me out of trouble. This feeling was warning me before something was wrong. This feeling was letting me know that there was something wrong with my kids. Like there was an occasion where my kids were being abused and I felt it. I was woken up in the middle of my sleep. I was getting chills over and over and over again. Something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. So I had to really, at that moment, I had to change my thinking from a bad feeling. Because here's the truth. Why would something that was bad warn me to help me not get in trouble or to not be hurt or to help somebody? Why would they warn me? That's not something bad. So I had to change my verbiage and stop saying I got a bad feeling and start change. And that really changed everything for me because it stopped being something bad and it started being something that was helpful. Do you understand?
I love that. Now, a lot of people might just call that intuition. And a lot of people would say, well, changing your verbiage, I love it because indeed, language is 9/10 of it. And when we reinforce things with our language, that can be great, or that could be a real issue. But what you're describing strikes me as intuition. And so I'm curious, what is your thought?
Intuition is a word that people use who aren't comfortable saying communicating with spirit. That's what that is.
Oh,
That's it.
okay.
That it's the same thing. It's no
It's the
different.
same thing.
I
Yeah.
like to say, call it mother's intuition, call it God, call it Jesus, call it spirit. However you get it, I don't care. It's not up to me to pick how you feel comfortable, right? Like that's the biggest problem I always had with religion when I was growing up. Is it was like it was our way or no other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, I
Exactly.
said, well, what about like there's these tribes who've never even met, that don't know who Jesus is. So you're telling me because they've never heard of it, they can't go to heaven? Like that never made sense to me. That these different beliefs. So it always made more sense to me to be open, right? And so I again, it's all the same. We're all trying to get to the same place. It's all spirit. It's all spirituality, right? Like
Mhm.
I had to let go of my prejudice of religion because I realized that it's all spirituality. So I have I also have addiction in my history. So I have drugs and alcohol in my past. So I I would I had this long battle with addiction, right? So my dad died of alcoholism. So he died at like 26 of cirrhosis of the liver. Okay. My grandmother died of cirrhosis of the liver. My grandfather killed himself. So that side of the family, like and it's also on my mom's side of the family, right? So I was raised around it. I was raised around alcohol and drugs. It was deep, right? And so, but I had these abilities when I was little, and I would, and I didn't mention this, but I'm an empath. So empaths get their information mostly by feel. So that means that I don't just feel things like a normal person. I feel things extra. Like I feel deeply, and I can feel you like it's me. I can, if you're sad, I can feel it and think I'm sad. So that's a big empath issue. Okay. So a lot of empaths end up using drugs or alcohol because it numbs that. It makes you feel almost, it makes it so you can be around people and not feel so deeply. Okay. I'm a grown adult who would start crying when a commercial about with a little boy, a little baby in a tire, like there's a tire commercial that made me cry. Like that's so as an adult male in society, that doesn't go over too well, right? So but see, and I thought it was this weakness that I had, but it ended up being a superpower, right? Like it ended up being a great thing. But so here so a lot of us numb that with drugs or alcohol. And there's also this thing where we have this, I describe it like this black hole in your soul, right? Like that people have. And that black soul is your purpose.
Hmm.
And that black soul, that hole in your gut is when, because we all have a purpose when we come here. And I'll give you the secret to this. It's very simple. It's always about helping other people. We are here. The secret to life, this is simple. The secret to life is helping other people. That's why we're here. That's clear to me. And I got it from this deep hole that I tried to fill with drugs and alcohol, people, gambling, anything that makes you feel good, you try to fill this hole with. But the only thing that fills that hole is helping others. That's the truth. And
Mhm.
so you've got to find that thing that you're supposed to be doing here, that thing you agreed to do here when you came, and is to help other people. And once you find that, it fulfills that hole, and you don't have that hole anymore. So again, drugs and alcohol, a lot of people trying to fill that hole with drugs and alcohol, a lot of people. And so how I developed was when I was young, I had this experience where I could communicate with my dad. I would, I kind of pushed it away like a lot of people do. I kind of ignored it, but I always used it. Like I always used it. If I got chills, I listened, right? Like that meant something to me. And then I got into drugs and alcohol, and then I started to try to get sober. First time I tried to get sober, I wasn't even 18 yet. So that tells you
Mm.
how bad I was.
Wow. Wow.
So by my 21st birthday, I was like trying to stop drinking and drugs, and I could not. By the time I wasn't even 21 yet, and I was already completely engulfed in alcoholism. I literally spent my 21st birthday in and my 18th birthday. So long story, but so here's how this goes. I would get sober, and in sobriety, we work on ourselves. We go through these steps. And in these steps, you take a look at yourself, and you deal with all this stuff in your past, and you take a look at your own fears, right? Like here's the biggest part of this that gets skipped over. I looked at my own fears because those are what drove me. I was afraid of everything. I didn't know. I was a male. I was a man, a young man, thinking I was afraid of nothing. And then I took a look at it and found out that I was afraid of everything. Like my whole life was based on decisions that I made out of fear. Like
Mm.
that's the truth. I was afraid of this. I was afraid of that. I was in, and so I do these steps, I do this program, and every time I get some sobriety and I get some healthiness, right? And looking at myself, these abilities would come back. All of a sudden I'd have spirits coming to me and try and giving me messages for people. And and so I would go and I'd give it, and it would be great, and I'd be like, oh my god, this is amazing. And again, so there's this joke that I'm going to be a powerful wizard, so my ego would just take off when I do this, and I'd think I'm going to be famous, I'm going to be a powerful wizard, I'm going to, and my ego would immediately take over, and I would just, and guess what would happen? I'd go try to do it the next day, and it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. And then I would get deflated, and I'd be like, I'm not a powerful wizard. Like that's my joke. Like I'm not, and I can't do this, and this isn't real. It was a fluke thing. I'm not a medium. I didn't know what a medium was yet. I just didn't. I knew. So this happened, and then I would either relapse or whatever. So I had this long history of going back and forth in the program. I'd get a couple years sober, right? And then my life would get really good, and these messages would come back and everything, and then it'd go back down. So again, this is where this medium-sized ego comes in, right? Like this is where I found that I have to have enough ego to do this work. I mean, I get up in front of rooms full of people to give messages, and I have to have ego to do that. You can't crush your ego completely. Like to think that you can have no ego or just be completely, it is not realistic. How do you help others with no ego? You don't, right? You don't, and that's why we're here. And so I would get this, I would get up, my ego would get crushed, I would lose it, and then I would get sober, I'd get clean, I'd work on myself, whatever it is. I'd get spiritually fit, basically. I call it spiritually fit. Once I got spiritually fit, whenever I'd get spiritually fit, these messages would come back, and it would blow me away. And again, then I would get unspiritually fit because either the ego would take over or whatever, and then I would lose it. And so I had this long, like, 14, 15, 20 years of this going up and down, trying to stay sober, just being blown away. Like, what does this mean? I mean, it really threw me for a loop when I realized this was real. When I first realized that I was communicating with something, and this really, I mean, I went down a rabbit hole of what is God, what is spirit, what is this, what am I? I mean, it threw me for a tailspin for a while, and so anyway, that's a whole nother story that I could go on for another hour, but I won't do that. But so anyway, I had this up and down, up and down, up and down until I finally got sober the last time for myself, right? And when I got sober for myself, and not for my kids, and not for my wife at the time, and not for anybody else, but I got sober for myself. Everything was different. Like it was really, really, really different. And my messages started coming, and I started doing it to help others, not to fulfill my ego, not because I was going to be powerful wizard, but because I could help other people with this. I could help people. I could heal people. This was for somebody else. And I literally, so I would go to these places where mediums were, and where they were doing messages, and I would expect to walk in the door and they'd be like, he's here. This is what my ego thought. He's here. He's the one. He's the one. Like, oh, you're supposed to be doing this. Like, this is what I thought was going to happen every time I walked into one of these places, and it never happened. And I would be devastated, right? And so it was kind of funny because it finally, one time I was helping out somebody in program, and I took them because they needed help, and I couldn't give them what they needed. And so I took them to go help them. And then when I walked in the door, they said, he's here. He's the one. He's the one. And I went, oh, I see what happened here. It
Yeah,
wasn't for
and it's the
me.
correlation and recognizing what is going on. And wow, that is a great story. Now, let me ask you, um, I've only met personally one other person of your type that I would say, yeah, he's the real deal. He's the real deal. And or in this case, it was she's the real deal. We were partners for a time. And it was amazing. Now, but she connected with her crew, her guides, her spirit, but they were all around us. And of course, she helped me recognize my guides and spirits all around me guiding me. And I can tell the difference when I am not listening. Major difference. Mediumship, though, strikes me as something a little bit different. And that's why I wanted you to reemphasize the definition that you give mediumship, because a medium, the person in between, the medium, the connector. And a medium, when I think of one, is I will come to you and say, Chair of the medium, I want to connect with my grandfather on my mother's side. I need to know what went on. Can you help me? And what I think I'm hearing is more like what my other person, tell me the difference, because we definitely want to understand. What my former partner used to do is say, well, the guides are saying, and they're laughing at you, Karen. They're just laughing at you. Don't go there. You don't need to go there. So there are nuances, and I want to understand. Can somebody come to you and say, Jared, I need to hear what my mother again?
Yeah, I discourage it though, because I mean, what I do personally is I don't let them ask me anything until like halfway through the reading or three-quarters of the way through the reading, because I want to try to get it first. Part of that's my ego, right? I want to get it first, but part of that is because if I can get what you want, if you come to me with a thought of what you want and I can get it without you asking me, then your parents are really there because they heard you, right? Like, and you won't
Yeah.
walk away with any doubt. Like, well, I did ask him that because I'm skeptical. Here's the thing that you got to understand. I'm a skeptic. I don't believe unless I feel like I am. And I expect everybody else to be skeptical. I don't like it when people walk in just believing because they make it hard. But the truth is I want to take any doubts that you have away that this was real, because that's my job. My job as a medium is literally just to bring evidence to you so that your loved ones are still around. That's what my job is as a medium. Like, not that, and to teach you that you don't need me because they're around. So I'm just confirmation, because you're talking to them all the time, you're feeling them all the time, you're getting the messages, but you have doubt. So if I can come and be like, hey, your mom says she remembers you, she saw you doing something with your bracelet this morning, and you're like, oh my God, I was talking to her when I did that. This is something that came up in circle last night. That's why I'm using this. So she says, so that's evidence that they're actually around and that they actually see what's going on. Do you understand? So that's I guess the best explanation. But here's the thing: if I'm doing this right, all I'm doing is communicating with my guide. I have one
Okay.
guide in specific. He's my gate. I call him the gatekeeper guide. This is what I teach people. It makes it super simple. I'm not reading you. It's why we can do this over Zoom. I'm communicating with the same guide every time. I get a really good connection with this guide. He tells me he gives me the information. If I'm doing this right, I'm not even here. I'm over here. I get the information and I pass it on to you, and I don't hold on to it.
I love
Right?
that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I can't have my own thoughts, my own ideas, and my own ego in the way, because that puts me in the center of it. Then I get it, I mix it, and then I give it to you. So that's why I don't remember most of my readings. I don't remember 99% of stuff that comes through. I can read you today and not remember any of it. Like,
Yeah.
because if I'm doing it right, I'm not there. I'm not there.
Right. Right.
So
Exactly. That's why I can say you're the real deal, because that is it. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a good way to tell if someone's real or not. Like, if they can remember, it's probably them. I don't know. That's just how it works for me. Again, I don't claim to be a guru on this subject. I only know what I know from what I was taught from spirit. Like, when I feel it, I believe it, and that's what I encourage people. Like, don't believe me. Like, I tell people, don't believe me. Believe your spirits. Believe your guide. Believe your senses. Like, if I said something to you and you got chills, that's what you believe, right? Because you felt it. That's the important thing. Like, trust your guides. Chills are like, what I always describe chills as is that spirit saying yes. Like when I get something right, if I'm giving you a reading and I get chills, then that means, yep, you got it finally. Or, yep, that's right. That's what you're supposed to talk about. Or, yep, that's just a yes. And so this is great, right? This is how it started for me, yes or no. And I would encourage all of your listeners to really, and I feel like they're all going to get chills right now just talking about this, right? Like this is because this is important. This is how our spirits can communicate with us. This is one of the best ways they can communicate. And it's yes or no. Okay. This is a simple way to do it. If you get chills, think of it as a yes and see where that takes you, because it's an amazing, amazing journey if you can do that, right? So if you're thinking a thought and you get chills, that's a yes. The stronger the chills, the stronger the yes. So it's kind of like that's how this all started for me. I just was doing basically 21 questions with chills. I really was. I really was. And so anybody can do that. Like most people get chills, right? Most people, they might write it off. Oh, I was cold. But
Yeah, it's chilly out today. The room is 65, whatever. Yeah. And the if we can start looking at this more as well, that's interesting. A sense of curiosity, not belief. And I love that you said that. Don't believe anything that I say either. You have to experience it. I'm happy to share my wisdom and take it or leave it. It's okay. But it is important to, and I'm feeling my chill. That's how I always tell too. But I had to learn that. I had to understand that that was what was going on. And my guys are here right now. And also in the heart, I can feel them in the heart. And knowing that it is the right thing. And knowing that I go days without any chills. It's like, okay, I got to get back in tune, right? Yes, guys, I do.
well, and you could think of it like this too. And maybe you didn't need it. Maybe, chills, chills can be a redirection, right? Like maybe hey, pay attention, so, hey, something's going on. So if you're not getting any chills, maybe you're doing okay. Maybe you just don't need it. So
I like
it's not
that.
necessarily a bad thing. Again, in the beginning, remember, I only got them when it was a bad thing. Like a lot of people, because it takes a lot of energy for spirit to intervene. It's not like it's easy. Like, people say they when a spirit appears in front of them or something, that's a lot of energy. That is not something that's easy for spirit to do. So it's only because you're messing up bad or you need it, like, hey, something's going on, right? Like they're not going to keep showing up like that all the time. It's I call that the billboard. But so when people so here's, I'm going to tell you about the billboard. So here's the definition of the billboard. When people think they want to get messages from spirit, like this is what I thought. Okay, I'm gonna close my eyes, and in the darkness of, not even in my third eye, not in my mind, not in, I'm closing my eyes and I'm literally looking with my eyes into the back of my eyelids in the darkness. Like I can still see the white in the room. Okay, and I'm expecting in that, when I ask, is anybody there? I'm expecting this big billboard to show up with neon lights in my vision to say yes. Like that's what I think messages are. And a lot of people think that's what I do. Like they think that when I'm getting a message, it's that clear, or I'm hearing like a voice in my ear, or like that's what people think. Like that's and again, I call that the billboard. And if you're expecting to see a billboard in your eyes, you're going to be disappointed because it doesn't happen very often. That's like the person appearing in front of you. And it's even worse if that does happen for you, because now you expect it to be that bright every time and it isn't. The truth is, messages are very subtle. Messages are faint. Messages are a thought that seems a lot like yours. Messages are a word that just appears in your head, and I can't even describe it. Like it's not like you hear someone talking next to you. It sounds like your voice in your head when it comes in. So these are like little examples of how people get messages, right? And I think maybe it's supposed to sound like your message so that people can say, oh, that's intuition, and not get freaked out. I mean, think about it. If you were hearing other people's voices, they would just think you were crazy, right? So the truth is, it's very subtle. And so our job is not to get spirit to be louder. It's not to get better at hearing spirit. This is how spirit described this to me. They said, well, you all want us to be loud. You all want spirit to be louder or more powerful or get better messages to you. And what you really need to do is learn your own voice better. Learn your own thoughts. Learn your own ideas. That way, when we give you one, you know the difference. And when they told me that, I could, oh, so, and then I go back to I told you my story, right? I would get sober, I would learn about myself, I would learn my own thoughts, my own ideas, my own fears, and then it would come back, and then I would lose all that, and then and so I said, oh, I see, that's what I was doing. That's what this whole part of my life where I struggled with drugs and alcohol, that's what it was for. It was to
You were
teach
able
me
to take in.
my own fears, my own thoughts, my own ideas. And this is how this works. When I'm standing in front of a room of 100 plus people and I see a baby burping, like I know that's not my thought, right? Like I know there's no way I'm going to say, does your baby burp extremely loud in front of a room of 120 people? Like I'm not, my fear would not allow me to talk about that. So I know when that thought pops in, that's not my thought because remember, I'm full of fear. So if I have something that goes against that fear, then I know immediately and I feel comfortable saying it. So see how I like learn my own stuff. And that way then I can understand what spirit gives me. It's a very interesting method and anybody can use this. This is simple. This is simple.
And you actually do teach this. So people like myself and our listeners could learn from you how to open themselves up more to spirit and hear their guidance. Now, with that said, I was listening to, I don't remember the name anyway. It doesn't matter a whole heck of a lot. But the idea that spirit guides us, that's all. But we are so powerful ourselves, just like you were talking, the waves and the ups and downs. We are always in control. We are always in control. We have the advice, but it is up to us whether we're going to follow it or not. We got the power. So that is going back to your story. I was getting bad feelings that this was not a good idea. Well, those were coming to you, great advice, great guidance, but it was up to you whether you were going to listen or not.
Yeah, there's a whole life of figuring that out, right? Like that's the thing. We you know, and I'm a learner. I learn the hard way always. Like that's how I learn. So did it take me a long time to learn that?
I'll make it
Absolutely.
easier.
Yeah. But I will tell you, since I started, so I started following spirit at some point. So there was a point in my life where I just decided, you know, my way's not working very well. Spirit had been telling me. So I was in a relationship. Spirit had been telling me for a long time that everybody was miserable, and um, and I knew I wasn't supposed to be in this relationship, but and I was doing all this work on me about fear. And long story short, I went to a psychic. Ironically, this was before I was a medium. I went to this psychic, and she said this one. She it was funny. I did all this work on fear about not being afraid. I swore I was not going to be driven by fear anymore. Right? I'm not going to let fear rule my life. And she said something to me, and nonchalantly under her breath, she goes, "Oh, well, you won't leave because you're too afraid." And she went on, right? But like it was funny because it was the one thing in the world that I had to hear. And she didn't even mean to say it where I could hear it. She said it under her breath. And she was doing something else. And I was just like, so I went home and I thought, am I just in this relationship because I'm afraid? Is that true? And it was true. It was true. Like I was afraid I couldn't do it on my own. I can't, I can't be responsible. I can't raise myself. Like I can't do all this stuff on my own. I can't get my own place. I can't, all those fears were there and I didn't know it. Right. So that's a kind of a funny story how that happened. So at that moment I decided, and of course spirit helped me with this a lot because they intervened. But when they did, I'm like, okay, spirit, you want me to do this? You got to know better than I do. I'm not doing so good here. I'm going to do whatever. If you tell me to do this, you've been telling me for years. I know it. It's obvious now. There's no coincidences. I'm going to listen. So I did. Long story short, it worked out really well. I immediately felt better. I felt relief that I didn't know I needed. Like I felt this just, oh my God. And when you're doing what spirit wants you to do, when you're going with spirit's advice or God or whatever you call it, it's easy. It feels right.
It
It
is
feels
easy.
good.
Yeah,
It's
why are
like,
we making it so hard?
it's like, right? It's just so much easier. And I'm like, and you don't know how easy it is until you get away from it. That's the thing. You don't know that you're fighting every moment, every being, every part of your being, you're just fighting, you know? And so I did that. And I swore then, look, my job from now on is figure out what they want and try to do that because this is amazing. This is awesome, as you would say. This is awesome, right? And my life has changed immensely since then. I mean, my life is, I mean, you got to understand, I was living in parks, in my truck, in my car. Like I came from the streets, right? And my life is completely turned around. And and not just physical, not just, you know, because of things, but because I'm happy. Like
That's key. We're
that's
put on
amazing.
this earth to be happy, to be prosperous, to be free. This is our purpose. That's
And I
my,
found my purpose. I
uh,
found my purpose. I found my
so
purpose and I followed it.
I, uh, I am so grateful you followed it. Oh my goodness. And thank you so much. I could definitely, I could talk to you forever. I could definitely get a reading from you and really truly appreciate it in every way, shape, and form. However, our time is getting shorter here.
I
So
know, I could tell. I see you looking at the watch. I know, I'm looking at the time. I know, I know.
I would
Yeah,
say, okay, so
schedule a
tell
reading with me after this. I'll give you a free reading, okay? But yeah,
okay,
go ahead.
that sounds great. Let me ask you, how can people get in touch with you and get trained by you?
So jaredthemedium.com, very simple. All my information's on there. I also wanted to mention I do have a show out called Medium Sized Ego that people can take a look at. You can watch it for free on my website. We're on episode 6 is coming out today. So it's all about me doing readings and teaching while I do the readings and walking people through the process so they can kind of understand that it's not a magic gift. It's like, this is how I'm doing it. This is what I saw. This is what I'm feeling. This is where the fear kept in. Oh shit. She said, sorry. She said no. She said no. So like, you know, so anyway, I walk everybody through the process and I'm really excited about episode 6 because it's called The Struggle is Real. And it's about the bad ones, like all the struggling, some of the struggling readings I did and why I struggled and how come I didn't do well in that one and what happened. So I'm kind of excited about that because I wanted to show both sides of mediumship, not just all the best readings. Like that was the point. Because I feel like I watch these mediums and you see all the best readings, and then you think, oh, I could never be that good, right? That's what happens. And in the process of me editing my own show, I started doing the same thing. So this is my solution to that, was to make one whole episode based on the struggles. So anyway, I'm really excited about that. All that information is on jaredthemedium.com. I do offer a development session via Zoom or in my location in Sacramento. And it's a 2-hour session. It's not, I don't do like courses because I think it's an individual thing. And it's a 2-hour session where I will work with you to connect you with your gatekeeper guide. I give you all the tricks I use to avoid my ego and all the ways that all the little tricks that I use to read. And yes, I'll call them tricks because they're ways that I trick myself to not get in the way. And so I do offer that readings, of course. And then I've got events. So I'm doing all over gallery events all over California that people can come and see for free. I'm about to start my own galleries pretty soon. So pretty exciting stuff. And I put all that stuff on my website.
Fantastic. What kept popping into my head as you were describing was you're the Ben and Teller of mediumship. You tell it like it is. You're sharing the secrets.
That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah. Like, again, that's my thing. This isn't some magic gift that only a few people have. And I don't know why people, you know, they don't want to, they want to keep it to themselves. I want to share it with everybody. I want everybody to use this in their everyday life. Like, and that's what my show is about. So you guys can see, like, you can use this. This is not.
It makes your life a lot better, a lot easier, and a lot more fun, which is what having an awesome life is all about. Enjoying what you are doing, being aware and allowing the information to come in, being able to make the right decisions. And it does not have to be as hard as we make it.
It's so easy. This is so much easier. I had no idea I was doing it the hard way.
Oh, Jason, thank you, Jared. I am so grateful for you, and I apologize for that.
That's okay. You
You
can edit that.
are amazing, and I look forward to our next conversation. And everyone, I will have his information in the show notes below. And until next time, enjoy life and be awesome.